Welcome to zume.training. Have you ever wondered how the church got started? How a handful of followers of an obscure carpenter's son, all living in a small suburb in the Middle East, became a global revolution that now counts almost 1/3 of the human population as members? The first church sent ordinary people around the world to tell others about Jesus. The first church sent ordinary people to stand before governors and generals and rulers and kings. The first church sent ordinary people to heal the sick, feed the hungry, raise the dead, and teach all of God's commands to everyone in the world. They gave away their possessions, rescued others out of debt, protected the poor, lifted up the least, and in many cases laid down their own lives for what they believed. The first church sent ordinary people to change the world, and they did. But how? How did all this happen without buildings or staff or programs or budgets? How did it start? And how did it grow? The answer is, it started small, just a handful of ordinary people. And it grew because those ordinary people like me and you, were willing to say yes to whatever God asked them to do. Ordinary people, simple steps, obeying God, changing the world. And at the center of it all was Jesus. That was God's plan all along. If you've ever wondered why you're here and what you can do to make a difference, you may want to learn more about zume.training. Zume is an online course built for ordinary people to learn simple steps to obey God and change the world. And at the center of it all is Jesus. Ready for your first step? Stop and pray right now. Ask Jesus if Zume is for you. If he says yes, then fill out the form and get started. Simple.
So could you give us a story to help kind of build the imagination of what does this look like when it starts with, one group in one living room or a cafe or whatever, and how did it grow towards being fruitful?
Yeah,
Kind of a
yeah,
few minutes of story there for us.
for sure. I think the best way to start is how I've massively failed first, and I think that's very normal. So I want to encourage you, like as you start, like it's going to be hard. It's probably gonna be the hardest thing you ever did, but also the most rewarding, joyful. So when I came back from training with Curtis, I'm like, I'm gonna do it way faster than he said I could. And so I went out and I legit started 17 simple churches in a month. 2 months later, they all died. Every single one of them. They were all gone. And so I call Curtis up. I'm like, Curtis, what happened? And he said, Zach, have you considered making one disciple? I'm like, no. Have you considered making one healthy church that reproduces? Well, no, I wanted to start a lot. It's like, well, you can't give away what you don't have. It's like duckling discipleship. You need to simply pass on what you know before you can try to do more. So I finally, from failure, bought into that and started making one disciple. First by a guy named Gary, then Cody, and then Paul, and started to pour deeply into them. And so what struck me was I need to pour deeply into a few. And as I concern myself with the depth of the ministry, God takes care of the breadth of the ministry. So long story short, I just started in my home, my wife and my kids. And that's the simplest level of a church in our home. So from that, my daughter Malia, who was 4 years old at the time, hey, said, Daddy, can I go to the kids in the neighborhood and ask them if they want to do this too? So from our church that meets in our home at the simplest level, we then literally launched our daughter, knocked on the doors around the neighborhood, asked the kids to come. We started having kids church in the front yard led by my 4-year-old, with us coaching obviously and helping, but she was facilitating this meeting. Out of that, 2 of the kids got saved. Their parents got curious. So that launched a 3rd generation church with the parents, mostly unbelievers. One of them, Helena, gave her life to the Lord. We baptized her and she started a 4th generation church. So from our living room to our front porch to our neighbor's house and beyond, we had 4 generations of churches before we left our cul-de-sac. I mean, that's just Jesus. So it can start very, very simple and pass it on. You don't have to go far. You just need to obey right where you are.
Wow. Wow. That's fun. So from your living room in the cul-de-sac, pan out and give us a bit of a sense of the scope of what the fruit is that's been growing, and what the network looks like, and also the general timeline that that's unfolded on.
Yeah. I've actually been thinking a lot about this lately because we're in a season of raising up more leaders to help fill the void and the gap as the Lord's calling me to help catalyze some new areas. So it's honestly kind of emotional for me because how hard it was in the beginning. Back in 2015, there was no one. Like everyone thought I was crazy. I felt totally alone. And I'm in a barn right now, and it was actually in this exact barn 5 years ago where I took plastic chairs right over here in the wall, put them in a circle around this room, and I just cried. My God, I've got no one. Fill these seats with the laborers. You've told us to pray for laborers. There's no one here. And now, like looking forward quickly, 2020, there's about 250 active disciple making laborers in Indiana from Evansville all the way up to South Bend. And that didn't happen overnight. Like the first year in 2015, there was like one or two groups, like healthy groups that were actually trying to obey. And I thought, man, this is so slow. We're never going to see anything here. Second year, about four groups. 2016, so I'm like, man, like people think I'm crazy. They're having all these churches, big gatherings. I've only got four little groups, but we kept being faithful to pour deeply into those people and helping them do the same thing. And so slowly that began to grow. And so the first 2 years was majorly just sowing into the harvest. And then 2017, 2018 was really stewarding the network that grew. It was about 12 to 15 groups at the time, started stewarding them. Now we actually raised up elders in these groups that were overseeing the network, and we formed an APES team, which apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, teacher, that were now stewarding, coaching, problem solving together. And so as that started to happen, we started to fill in the gaps in other areas and found people in Lafayette and Kokomo and Muncie and Evansville and South Bend, all these other areas from our relationships. And we started to travel and to train and help them start in their own areas as well. And so now what it's really led to is we're helping the groups in Evansville start their APES to raise up elders. Like literally, just like the book in Titus, go back there and put things into order. So now we're actually helping these other cities in our own state do that. We formed from the simplest level. This is just so cool. It's just straight out of the book of Acts. We had the church in our home. We have a church in our neighborhood, church in our community. Now we're actually functioning as a healthy regional city church that are helping start other churches. Because once again, we can only give away what we have. Now that we have that, we can help Lafayette, we can help Evansville, we can help South Bend because we have that to give away. And so now at this point, as we're looking forward, we're raising up these elders in these other cities overseeing this network. And the ultimate goal now is to get down to every county in Indiana using different strategies and methods to do that. But we want to see saturation, disciple making movements in every county and having catalytic leaders in every county. So we have it planned out. We have leaders ready. And so we're just trusting the Lord and taking one step at a time.
Wow. And could you give us a little bit of an insight? How have the COVID restrictions around you impacted your gatherings and things like that and your whole ministry?
As far as our personal network, it has only accelerated it. People that I've talked to that are doing disciple making, everyone is like almost unanimously saying COVID has been one of the biggest blessings that we could have never known to even ask for. And for multiple reasons. One, the loss, the harvest, I feel like the soil, once again, I'm a farmer. I feel like now this has actually prepared the soil. People are hungry, people are desperate, people are open when they never were before. And Christians that were just kind of apathetic in their life and their following of Jesus, two things are happening. They're either the walls are coming down and they're open, or they're doubling down and they especially don't want it even more. So by and large, this has really helped catalyze prayer because for a season we started online praying every day. So that started stirring up a lot, creating a lot of new relationships. We started even have more reason to decentralize and meet in smaller groups. That helped it spread more. And that caused us to have this extra time to want to connect to the other states and cities so that we can begin filling those gaps as well.
So if you were to give a tip for someone who is just starting into this whole realm and way of thinking, what would you encourage them to begin doing in the next week and in the next months?
Don't make the same mistakes I did. So keep it simple. Try to pour into one or two people to make a healthy disciple. Help them to do the same thing. Start with one group in your home. Pour deeply into them. People that want to do movement, we want to see a lot. We want to see it quickly. And the counterintuitive thought is, okay, that actually means I need to go slow to go fast, go low to raise up more people, go deep to go wide. And so like it's so hard. Like it goes so against our flesh. But my encouragement to you is, one, just get on your knees and pray. Pray for laborers. Pray for the people that you do have. Ask God, who are those few people you can begin pouring into, and start one group and helping them start to do the same thing. A couple simple things you can do is go prayer walking. Go into a new area and try to find a person of peace. That could be a weekly rhythm where either you or two or a team of you select a field that God is like leading you to, and just once a week go and prayer walk there and pray that you can find people of peace that you see Jesus talk about in Luke chapter 10 and Matthew chapter 10. So I would say, as far as just simple next steps, just begin doing that. Teach them as you start discipling them how to share the gospel, why they should share the gospel, and who they can share it with, and start simple, start small.
Cool. Thank you so much, Zach. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, John.
So how does Zume training work? It's simple. Here are the basics. 1. Gather a small group. 2. Complete 10 training sessions. 3. Put what you've learned to work. That's it. Simple, right? Let's look a little bit more at each. Gather a small group. Zume training is meant to be done with others. Jesus said, "Where 2 or more come together in my name, I am there with them." The best group size is between 4 and 12 people. This size group gives everyone a chance to participate fully and share their own ideas, thoughts, and questions. This might be a group of friends, a group of couples, coworkers, neighbors, a Bible study, or even a new group that comes together just to go through this training. If you end up with more than 12, then break into 2 smaller groups. Remember, everyone needs a chance to practice and to be heard. Complete 10 training sessions. Zume training is meant to be done in just 10 sessions. Each session is about 2 hours long and involves online videos, group discussion, Bible reading, and prayer. And everything can be streamed and downloaded for free. Some groups may want to complete all 10 sessions over the course of a weekend training intensive. Most groups will complete these sessions over the course of 10 weeks, 2 hours at a time. Put what you've learned to work. Zume training is meant to be put to work. It's not just something that you learn. Throughout the 10 sessions, there will be practical steps to put what you're learning into practice. After all, Jesus didn't say he wanted his followers just to know all of his commands. He told his disciples, teach them to obey. Obedience means putting what you know to work. And for Zume training, that means at the end of the sessions, we'll get to work starting simple churches. That may sound like a big assignment, and it is, but it's not about buildings or staff or programs or budgets. It's about gathering a group of people and learning together how to obey what Jesus teaches us in His Word, and then teaching others how to do that too. Zume is about taking small things and letting God make them big. And the big idea here is that Zume training could spread around your city, state, country, and even the world. If you have friends in other areas that may not be able to join your Zume group, you can invite them to start their own. And if you really like starting groups, there are even positions you can take that help you do just that. We make it easy, and it's all part of the training. Remember, the goal of Zume training is to obey what Jesus told us to do. Jesus said, "Go and make disciples, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teach them to obey all that I've commanded you." If we're followers of Jesus, part of what Jesus commanded us to do is make other followers of Jesus. Obeying Jesus means multiplying. Zume training makes multiplying simple.